Antrash, 1896, a very important news article featuring the death of Otto Lilienthal, a German glider who lost his life and broke his spine from a crash. And this news, read by two people, Wilbur and Orville, happened to be proved to be a critical trigger point that ended up changing the world. Yes, I'm talking about the Wright brothers. So Wilbur basically, after reading this news article, he basically sent an important letter, a very important letter to the Smithsonian Institute in Washington, asking for more resources to learn more about flying. This also happened to be a very important stage climate, where a lot of important scientists and engineers were also were trying to solve the problem of flying. And some of them happened to be Alexander Graham Bell, Hiram Maxim, the inventor of machine gun, and Edison. So these were some of the important people who were trying to solve the problem of flying. So what happened was, after that, the Smithsonian Institute basically shared some of the resources to Wilbur, and one of them happened to be a book written by a French farmer. The book was basically a French translation, written by a French farmer who knew a great deal about aeronautics, and that book happened to change Wilbur's life forever, and it had one of the most important impacts, or the biggest impact in Wilbur's life, because after that, reading that book, Wilbur and Orville decided that the dream of flying can become a reality, and they started working on it. So while working on it, they figured that it's not just about flying, going up in the air, it's also about staying up in the air, which was a real deal, and equilibrium was one of the most important factors that contributed to flying. So despite the inexperience, Wilbur and Orville basically were going all guns blazing, trying different methods to figure out how to balance in the air. They were trying to build wings to experiment to see how much they can balance. And during this time, they also had a lot of dissent that came in from Johns Hopkins University. A professor basically dismissed this whole vision and dream of flying. He basically considered it as the most impractical thing somebody can try. And same by a U.S. Navy chief engineer, who also shared his share of dissent, where he also didn't believe in this dream of flying. So during this time, Wilbur and Orville were trying to build a glider, which they eventually did build, and by August, I think they had the glider ready. And once they had the glider ready, they figured that Kitty Hawk is a place which is like far away from where they live, but that's a place where they had a lot of steady winds and an open air strip, and where it was also like relatively very private, so where they could really practice gliding. So once they figured out gliding, they basically practiced so much, and they did about 1,000 glides, and after that, once they did 1,000 glides, they knew that what they had accomplished. They figured the art of flying, which is one of the most important things. The next thing is, they knew that they needed a motor so that they can attach the motor to the glider to make it a machine. So now it becomes a flying machine. So they basically sent mails to a lot of these automobile manufacturers to ask them for an off-the-shelf engine. Most of them didn't respond, and the one person who did respond, they had an engine, but that was basically too heavy. So after that, basically what they did was, they were trying to figure out how to solve this issue, and they did not have any experience building engines, but they knew that they needed some very, very new kind of thinking. But what they didn't realize was, they had Mr. Charlie Taylor, who worked in their bicycle shop, who had apparently he had the ability to basically build an engine from scratch, and he happened to be this mechanical genius, which they didn't know at that time. And Charlie Taylor ended up building an engine, and they took that engine to Kitty Hawk and attached it to the flyer. And Daniel clicked one of the most important pictures in world history. He clicked a picture of Orville flying for 12 seconds at 120 feet, and that was basically the Wright brothers' first experience of flying like a trailer, if you want to call it that. And after that, Wilbur went up to 175 feet, and Orville took another turn and went up to 200 feet. And Wilbur again went up to 800 feet, 850 feet, and he flew almost for a minute. Although Catherine tried to take this news immediately to one of the press media news channels. The press refused to record it because they said 57 seconds is not enough. They needed 57 minutes to make it a news article. But having said that, it took Wilbur and Orville about 4 years of storms, disappointments, ridicule, dissent, and everybody throwing in their weight and saying this is not going to be happening. But they still proved it after 4 years that now flying looked like it's going to be a reality. And they had to travel about 7,000 miles all the way from Kitty Hawk back to home, back and forth, only to fly a mile eventually after 4 years. But that happened to be the most important thing that happened there at that time. And after that, when they came back, Charlie Taylor basically reminded them that the bicycle shop, as in they had an income conundrum where they basically didn't have money, and Charlie Taylor reminded them that they didn't have any money, so they basically had to figure out, they had to go to the bicycle shop, work their asses off, take the profits from there, invest it to pursue the experiments in flying. And during this time, they had to basically relocate because Kitty Hawk was too far away, so they found a new location called Huffman Prairie. So Huffman Prairie was owned by this person called Torrance Huffman, who the Wright brothers knew. But despite the fact that he knew them, he liked the Wright brothers, but even he thought that the Wright brothers were foolish to try something as crazy as flying. And so in Huffman Prairie, they had one of the most difficult periods because it took them about many months of reiteration, because every time they tried, something failed. Something kept disturbing them, disturbing the momentum, because either the rudder failed, or the wings tore, or the air propeller had some issues. Every time they tried, it kept failing until August, where Wilbur flew 1,000 feet, beating all the previous records of flying in Kitty Hawk, and beating all the records basically of what the brothers had tried before. And one more important thing that Wilbur accomplished in his next flight in September is he flew a complete circle, which was never done previously in world history. And by 1904, they have made 104 flights. And this basically was evidence that flying became a reality. And in 1906, they finally got a patent approved, which they applied for in 1903, and they got it approved. And most importantly, in the same year, they basically signed a deal with the French because they wanted to sell their flying machine to the French for about $350,000. And the deal was basically they had to perform in front of the public for everybody to believe it, basically. And what happened after that was in 1908, it was a very important year because two important things happened that year. One, they built a two-seater flying machine, but the deal was Orville and Wilbur, both the brothers, decided they should not fly together, because in case there's a crash and both of them die, there's nobody else to take the experiment forward. So the policy that the brothers came up with was basically they both are not going to fly, so it's always going to be one person flying, so that if it crashes, the other person can pursue the dream forward, take it forward, basically. And so what happened is in 1908, the next important thing that happened was Orville packed this flying machine and sent it to France. So basically the deal was Orville had to perform in Washington, in Kitty Hawk, in front of a big crowd in the public, and Wilbur had to perform in France, in front of the French public. So the machine that Orville packed and sent to France was, funnily, when Wilbur opened the machine, whatever he had in France, the machine was completely broken. And Wilbur thought, why would Orville pack this machine in such a crazy, disorganized fashion? Only to realize that it was not Orville that packed it this way, but the French customs, who didn't really care about the flying machine, and they basically literally broke it in different pieces. And Wilbur had a Wilbur was basically in a spot of bother, because he basically survived a crash, basically. And it had been 3 months since he practiced, and this flying machine is broken, and he had to basically reconstruct the whole flying machine. So this also means basically the fact that he not only had to reconstruct the flying machine, he also somehow had to pull it off when he basically performs there and prove it to the French public. Otherwise, everybody's going to dismiss this whole deal of making flying a reality, because everybody till then thought the Wright brothers were liars. So Wilbur took the risk of basically reconstructing the machine from scratch and he had to take the risk of flying on that specific day, despite having all the doubts with the machine, because it was completely new from what he and Orville worked. And the most important thing happened on August, the 8th month of the 8th day of the 8th year, 1908, where Wilbur pulled it off by flying in front of the French public, and everybody was super happy and amazed at what they saw. Basically, a flying machine up in the air, and all the press and media recorded this whole thing, and it went across the whole of Europe, basically, that this was real, and the Wright brothers were not liars. They actually proved it with evidence that this really works. And in that same time, right across the Atlantic, Orville flew about for 4 minutes in front of the American public, and he kept shattering all the world records by flying for longer and longer. And of course, the rest of the story goes where it's just basically the Wright brothers gaining all the recognition and fame, and all the important people in America and France sharing the happiness and recognizing and giving awards to Wright brothers, including money. And in 1909, I think President Taft called the Wright brothers to the White House and honored them with all the medals. And basically, that's how the story goes. And this is basically the book. It's by David Mccullough. He's one of the best authors for biography. Very simple. He has a reputation for demystifying some of the most complex concepts and stories. Amazing book if you want to read it. And I'll just show you the front and back. This is him, and this is how the book looks. And if you have belief in perseverance, anything is possible, and belief and perseverance are critical success factors for any success story. And the Wright brothers' story, their life and their journey, is basically a solid proof that belief and perseverance are very, very important factors for success. And if you're still watching this video, thanks a lot for watching this. Happy 2021. Thanks for watching it till now. You'll see me in the next. Bye bye.